Hello, I'm Victoria. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all of the anticipated releases that I'm really excited for 2026. So I feel like a lot of people that I watch on BookTube, they have a lot of books that they get excited about, that they see coming out. And while I read a lot, I don't really find myself looking for like the new ones a lot. Like if you follow my reading, I kind of just find myself picking up kind of whatever, and it might be a new release and it might be something from like the 90s. I typically don't go too much older than that time period, but this year actually I did start reading a little bit of like actual classics. So I'm branching out a little bit, kind of in the opposite direction. That being said, there are some books that I am really excited about for this upcoming year. Most of them are going to be connected to either series I am currently reading or authors that I have already had experience with, but there are a handful of ones that are completely new to me. So rather than doing like a seasonal anticipated releases or monthly or anything, we're just gonna go all out, and I'm going to just talk about all of them, and there's like 14 I think for me to talk about. Let me know what y'all think of this setup of how I'm filming today. Normally I'm sitting in a chair and I'm like closer up to the screen. Today I decided to give standing a shot, and so in order to do that I'm like further away, and I don't know if one's better than the other. If y'all have a preference, just let me know. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go in order of release date. So our first anticipated release is Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. This is supposed to be coming out February 10th. I have my phone with me so that way I can tell you guys what the books are about. It says, all colonist Oliver Lewis ever wanted to do is run the family ranch with his sister, maybe play a gig or two with his band, and keep his family's aging fleet of intelligent agriculture bots ticking as long as possible. As a fan of Earth television and culture, he figures it would be a good thing when the transfer gate finally opens all the way and restores instant travel and full communication between Earth and his planet, New Serona. But there's a complication. Even though the settlers were promised they'd be left in peace, Earth's government now has other plans. The colossal Apex Corporation is hired to commence an eviction action, but maximizing profits will always be Apex's #1 priority. Why spend money printing and deploying their own AI soldiers when they can turn it into a game? Why not charge bored Earthers for the opportunity to design their own war machines and remotely pilot them from the comfort of their own homes? The game is called Operation Bounce House. Oliver and his friends soon find themselves fighting for their lives against machines piloted by gamers who've paid a premium for the privilege. With the help of an old book from his grandfather and a bucket of rusty parts, Oliver is determined to defend the only home he's ever known. So I feel like by this point, even if you're not a fantasy reader, a lot of people have heard of Matt Dinniman. So in this community, I feel like pretty much everybody's heard of Matt Dinniman by now with his Dungeon Crawler Carl series. And then I don't know if y'all saw my video where I read his book Kaiju, the standalone lit RPG, but I also definitely recommend checking that book out. And so with my two really good experiences that I've had with his books, I am really excited to check this one out. It does sound a little bit different from his other stuff. It's interesting because it's still kind of game connected, but like it doesn't sound like this one is actually going to be an RPG. It's just more sci-fi directly, and I'll be interested to see how that makes a difference in the story, I guess. Next, but also coming out on February 10th, we have Secondhand Look by Kim Harrison. This is book 2 in her, what's the series called? The Shadow Age series. I have the first book in this series. It is, oh, there goes my pineapple. 3 Kinds of Lucky. If y'all recall, I have been kind of on this journey of trying to find urban fantasy that works for me, because I have found some that I absolutely love, and so I know that there's potential for me to find more series that I do. But there are also a lot of common tropes in the subgenre that don't work for me, so it's a lot of trial and error. And based off of this first book in the series, I think I could really like this one, so I'm really excited to pick up the sequel. So for this first book, 3 Kinds of Lucky, the description for this one says, Petra Grady has known since adolescence that she has no talent for magic, and that's never going to change. But as a sweeper first class, she's parlayed her rare ability to handle dross, the damaging magical waste generated by her more talented kin's spells, into a decent life working at the Mages University. Except Grady's relatively predictable existence is about to be upended. When the oblivious, sexy, and oh so out of reach Benedict Storm needs someone with her abilities for a research project studying dross and how to render it harmless, she's stuck working on his team, whether she wants to or not. But Benedict doesn't understand the characteristics of dross like Grady does. After an unthinkable accident, she and Benedict are forced to go on the run to seek out the one person who might be able to help. An outcast exiled 10 years ago for the crime of using dross to cast spells. Now Grady must decide if she will stick with the magical status quo or embrace her own hidden talents and risk shattering their entire world. So it's been a little bit since I read this book, but I distinctly remember it had something that I really enjoy in my urban fantasy, where the main characters, particularly in the urban fantasy I've read, they've had female main characters. They're still strong without being assassins and those type of characters. For some reason, that type of strength in my female leads doesn't really do it for me, not to mention the fact that detective urban fantasies tend to be a little too monster of the week for me. So with this not having either of those two issues, I was really able to enjoy the main character, and I liked that the plot line of this one feels like one that is going to be interconnected throughout like the whole series. At least that's the impression I'm getting, and what like I felt from the first book, rather than it being like a different issue in each book. There's nothing wrong with like serialized series. That's just not what is like my favorite for this genre, I guess. But next we have the Book of Fallen Leaves by A.S. Tamaki. This comes out March 17th, and this is one that's completely new to me. So this one, it says, Sen Hoshiakari, the exiled son of a traitor, is determined to restore his decimated clan to their former power at any cost. But when his path collides with that of Rui, a low-born woman who once saved his life, he discovers his family ambitions may have paid a darker price than he ever knew. And as Onryo, vengeful demons, rise throughout the land again, demanding retribution for their slaughtered souls, he's torn between loyalty to the family he's searched for his entire life and the love of his closest friend. Only now, his reunited family and their allied forces will stop at nothing in a blossoming civil war against the empire they once served. And the more they kill, the worse the demons will become. To save the world, Sen and Rui must join this conflict and find a way to forge peace, even if it means being cursed by the very gods who once protected them. So I think this sounds really interesting. It is classified as adult epic fantasy, science fiction fantasy. That's interesting. And this is the debut book for this author. And I've talked about this before. I am someone who like grew up reading manga and watching anime and everything. So I have had a ton of experience with like Japanese media, but not in books specifically, like these kind of books, I guess. And so that is something I'm wanting to rectify, just Asian literature in general. And this one sounds really interesting to me because I feel like a lot of the ones that I have seen that have become popular, they're typically YA, and I do enjoy YA, but I'm excited to try my hand at like a adult fantasy that's Asian mythology inspired, you know? Next, coming out March 19th, we have Children of Strife by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is book 4 of, where is it? The Children of Time series. I don't know what the series name is, but the first book is Children of Time, and as you know by now, I am loving this series. I'm 2 books in, gonna be reading the 3rd soon, just in time to be ready for the 4th book when it comes out. Although I probably won't read it as soon as it comes out, just with how recently I'll have read book 3. I'll probably need a little bit of a break for that. But based off of the 2 books that I have read so far, I feel like each book is going to have like such big distinctions between them that it's not really something you can just go based off of the first book and like know what you're getting from the whole series. Except for I'll say that Adrian Tchaikovsky, the big thing with this series is like really well thought out, in-depth, like alien world building. And also like alien mind building. Like you really get to like delve into beings other than humans and like how they might function and everything, and it's just so fascinating, and his writing is so well done. I love this series so much. Next, coming out March 31st, we have This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me by Ilona Andrews. This is the first book of a new series of hers. If you don't know her, she actually, I said hers, but I'm pretty sure this is the urban fantasy author, that it's actually a married couple duo that write these books together. So if you don't know of them, they are a huge urban fantasy writer, but I have picked up a few of their books and really enjoyed the writing style, but hadn't found one that the main characters and plot lines worked like perfectly for me. And so like if it was just like okay, then I was fine dropping it, but I did see their skill as writers, and so I was like, I've always been interested in finding a series of theirs that would work for me, and so with this one I'm hoping to try it out and then maybe it'll be the one for me. So what this says is, when Maggie wakes up cold, filthy, and naked in a gutter, it doesn't take her long to recognize Caer Torin. It's a city she knows intimately from the pages of a famously unfinished dark fantasy series, one she's been obsessively reading and rereading while waiting years for the final novel. Her only tools for navigating this gritty world of rival warlords, magic, and mayhem: her encyclopedic knowledge of the plot, the setting, and the characters' ambitions and fate. But while she quickly discovers she cannot be killed, though many will try, the same cannot be said for the living, breathing characters she's coming to love. A motley band that includes a former lady's maid, a deadly assassin, various outrageous magical creatures, and a dangerously appealing soldier. Soon, instead of trying to return, she finds herself enmeshed in the schemes and attentions of dueling princes, dukes, and villains. This all while trying to save them and the kingdom of Relis or Reyes, I'm not sure, from the ending she's seen on the Cataclysmic War. Yeah, so this sounds like it could be right up my alley because I have enjoyed plenty isekai type stories before, and from what I have read of their other works, they find the good balance of having a relevant, like prioritized romance that is like definitely in the forefront without being like a main part of the plot. Because I've definitely found that with urban fantasy, I prefer them to be separate. I like to have the main plot storyline that we're working on and then having a strong but separated romance plot in addition. I think that that's kind of what differentiates. I think that might be why I struggle with romantasy as a genre, is that I love having a strong romance in my stories, but I don't want the plot line to revolve around the romance in most cases. So yeah, I think this sounds like something I could really enjoy. Hopefully I'm right. I guess we'll see. But up next we have another completely new to me book. This is To Steal a Throne by Gabby Burton, and this is supposed to come out April 7th. This one is a YA fantasy, and it says, her magic feeds on lies. His magic could destroy her. Mira Kyler runs the court of Verde from the shadows. Ever since she helped her half-brother Luke cheat his way into the role of Verde's leader, she's used her lie-powered magic to collect secrets from members of the court, then use them as blackmail to keep her brother in power. But when newcomer Cadrin Vale shows up and challenges Luke's leadership, he threatens the stability Mira has worked so hard for. Cadrin also has magic that can detect the precise nature of someone else's power with a single touch. If Cadrin so much as brushes against her, everyone will discover that Mira is the one who's been manipulating the court for years. As Cadrin and Luke compete in 3 deadly challenges called the Trials, Mira realizes that no matter who wins, she'll be stuck serving a mediocre man who doesn't deserve to be in charge. She's done hiding in the shadows. She wants power of her own. To get it, she'll have to betray both her brother and Cadrin, but the fiercer the competition gets, the more Mira realizes that the one boy who could destroy everything is the one boy she might not be able to resist. So, I'm a little bit conflicted about this one. I think it's leaning a little bit too much romantasy for me, but everything except for that very last bit of the description sounds perfect to me. I like how the main character does not really sound, she doesn't sound lawfully good, D&D terms, but yeah, so I like that. She's like blackmailing people and keeping her brother in power. I'm not sure if she realizes that he's not a good king and is doing it anyways, or if she doesn't realize until later, but I'm intrigued by the setup for her character. I think that the romance will either be something fun or it'll be if I don't enjoy the book, I think it'll be very likely that it's because of the romance. So we'll just have to see with that one. This next one I believe is supposed to be a standalone. It's called Thistlemarsh by Moria Corrigan, and it's supposed to come out April 21st, and it's a historical fantasy with romance. It says, welcome to Thistlemarsh, a ramshackle estate where an impoverished orphan and beguiling fairy collide in an enchanting novel of love, revenge, and ruin. In the wake of World War I, the world is a decidedly unmagical place for Mouse Doon. It's an interesting name. But she once dreamed of becoming a fairy anthropologist, but with one telegram, her world shattered. At the Battle of the Somme, her cousin's body disappeared into the mud, and her brother was left with debilitating shell shock. It was time, she knew, to put aside childish dreams. When Mouse receives news that her uncle has left her the fairy-blessed Thistlemarsh Hall, a dilapidated manor in the English countryside, she must leave her brother's side and return to her childhood home to reclaim her birthright. But there is a catch in her uncle's... It just cuts off. I'm assuming it's supposed to be her uncle's will. And then it says, if Mouse does not rehabilitate the crumbling house in 1 month's time, she will forfeit her inheritance and any hope of caring for her brother. It quickly becomes clear it's impossible to repair the manor in the allotted time until a mysterious fairy appears with a proposition. He offers to restore Thistlemarsh for a price. Mouse knows better than to trust a fairy, especially one so insufferably handsome and arrogant, but she's out of options. There are dark and magical forces at work in the house, and Mouse must confront the ghosts of her past and the secrets of her heart, or lose Thistlemarsh and herself in the process. So this is another one that I'm a little bit iffy about because it could either go really well for me and be strong with like the Dangerous Deal with Fairies route, which I would enjoy being a little bit dark and gritty and stuff, or I'm a little bit worried it might be a little bit too, not necessarily cozy, but slow, environmental with not much happening. I feel like based on the description of the story, I could see both being possibilities, maybe even both at once, and in that case, I'm not sure how I would feel about it, but I at least want to give it a shot because I do like fairy stories, particularly when they're like portrayed like that and really emphasize the whole Dangerous Deal aspect. We'll just have to see how the author goes about it, I guess. Then we have She Knows All the Names by Michelle Habez Kapora, and this is supposed to come out May 5th. This is book 2 of the Thrones of Katara series, book 1 being His Face is the Sun. I read that semi-recently, a couple months ago, I think. I'm not sure. Time just kind of is a blur to me. But I remember really enjoying it, but I also know that after reading it, I kind of struggled to remember everything that happened in it. But I remember it's an Egyptian mythology-inspired series, and it kind of has like a YA-ish feeling level of epic fantasy. You're following multiple characters and the world building is really cool in this. Okay, yeah, it is classified as YA, so that does explain the feeling I was getting from it. But you have tomb robbers and priestess oracles, political machinations and royalty involved. It has like a lot of the things that I enjoy, but I'm definitely not sold yet on the series, like I said, with it being one that was enjoyable in the moment. Like I remember that, but I don't really remember much actually about the book that is leaving me like, okay, how's the series gonna, go for me? But I am excited to continue with it just to see where I guess I end up falling. But from what I remember from the first book, I would say if you liked the City of Brass series, I would give this one a shot. And for Dani, I don't remember the first book of this series having as much of a romance focus at all compared to the first book in the Daevabad trilogy, City of Brass. So maybe you would like this Egyptian mythology series, although I do think that it probably leans like just slightly younger, and I know you struggle with YA, so, but next we have All Hail Chaos by Sarah Rees Brennan, and this is supposed to come out May 12th. This is the sequel to Long Live Evil. Okay, this is not like peak literature type book, but it is one that I had a really fun time with. It is about this girl. I am just going based off memory, so I don't quite remember her name, but she was sick and was basically like living in the hospital, and her sister, I almost said her Sarah, her sister used to read this book series to her, and eventually she really fell in love with it. And then she dies, and she's offered the chance, like a second chance at life in the world of that fantasy series, so she jumps on that. But two things, she's placed into the role of the villainess of the series, and also she wasn't really into the book initially, so she doesn't remember the initial stuff that happened and doesn't know like what she needs to do to achieve the outcome she wants. So she's just kind of winging it and trying to survive as the villainess and complete her goal that she needs to, and I just found it a lot of fun. It's a little bit ridiculous in some spots, but honestly, for someone who doesn't really prioritize the romances in a lot of my stories, I really liked the love interest in this book a lot, and that is the thing that I'm most excited for when it comes to book two. I think it's a lot of fun and kind of chaotic, and also a little bit dark in some ways, and it worked for me. Then we have The Tapestry of Fate by Shannon Chakraborty. This is book 2 of, where is it? The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. This book, so, you know, I loved the Daevabad trilogy so much, and it took me a long time to getting around to picking up The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. When I did, for a large chunk of the book, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm enjoying this, but I'm not in love. By the end, I wouldn't say it was like a favorite book, but it's one that I was really satisfied with by the end, and I did feel excitement to pick up the sequel, mainly because I want to see how certain character relationships develop with the second book. Some of the dynamics in there I felt were really unique compared to like most books that I've picked up that you just don't really see very often. Okay, so my battery died, so I might look a little bit different and stuff, but yeah, I'm pretty sure we were done with A Tapestry of Fate, I think is what it was called, right? The Tapestry of Fate. I'm pretty sure we were done with that. So the next book is The Unicorn Hunters by Catherine Arden. This is supposed to come out on June 2nd. The only books that I have read by her is I read The Bear and the Nightingale, and then absolutely love that. And then I tried book 2, didn't really love that. I ended up DNFing it, but I loved the first book so much that I have it on my shelves. I just have it as a standalone. So I am excited to try something else by her. This is another historical fantasy. I guess this must be like a genre that she just really likes, I assume. I don't know if she's written other stuff actually, but let's see. It says, Anne of Brittany was a child when her realm was invaded, her home besieged, and her royal father driven to his death. Now her treasury is empty, her land occupied by her enemies, and she is ordered, under threat of renewed war, to become queen of her conquerors and marry the King of France. This marriage means her country's annexation, but Anne promised her father that Brittany would never be conquered. Defiantly, she betroths herself in secret to France's greatest enemy. But in a world where courts may spy on each other by magic, there is only one way to solemnize this illicit union. Anne takes her court deep into a legendary forest where the court diviner's skill cannot reach. The world thinks they are only a hunting party, coursing after unicorns. But that is a lie, a trick, a feint. No one in living memory has seen a unicorn. All Anne wants is this secret wedding, which is her only hope of salvation. But when against all hope a unicorn appears and a stranger out of legend stumbles from the trees and falls at her feet, Anne is plunged into a world of enchantment where a doomed sovereign might find the power to change her own and country's Oh, I don't know how to read. Anne is plunged into a world of enchantment where a doomed sovereign might find the power to change her own and her country's destiny, or be lost in the shadows forever. Honestly, historical fantasy where it's like specific event based typically doesn't really work for me. Like, I don't like a lot of stuff that's based on World War settings, World War One, World War Two, things like that. I kind of like a more vague historical type fantasy for my books. But since this one, it does have, like, you know, the initial part that is historical, but then we kind of go into what seems to be a more heavily fantastical situation when she gets into the forest, I think it could still work for me. And I do love Catherine Arden's writing, so I'm open to giving this one a shot, and hopefully I'll enjoy it. I think it'll be beautifully written either way. I just don't know if it'll end up being for me, if that makes sense. But next we have another completely new to me one, and that is The Poet Empress by Shen Tao or Dao. I'm not sure because it's spelled T-A-O, and I feel like I remember in school, like Taoism, you know? So I'm not sure on the pronunciation for that. But it's supposed to come out, oh, this says January 20th, but I wrote down July 20th. So, I don't know, maybe I just misread that earlier. But this is another Asian-inspired fantasy, and it says, in the waning years of the Azalea dynasty, the emperor is dying, the land consumed by famine, and poetry magic lost to all except the powerful. Wei Yin is desperate. After the fifth death of a sibling, with her family and village on the brink of starvation, she will do anything to save those she loves, even offer herself as concubine to the heir of the beautiful and brutal Azalea House. But in a twist of fate, the palace stands on the knife edge of civil war, with Wei trapped in its center, at the side of a violent prince. To survive, Wei must harden her heart, rely on her wit, and become dangerous herself, even if it means becoming a poet in a world where women are forbidden to read, and composing the most powerful spell of all, a ballad of death and love. So this one is kind of confusing to me. On Goodreads, it's classified as fantasy, adult, historical fiction, romantasy, but I was watching Library of Vikings anticipated releases video, I think is what I was watching, and in the comments, the author had actually commented that it had been mislabeled and that it's not a romance. So clearly someone messed that up on Goodreads. I don't know, on Goodreads, is it just like the readers who put in the categories for the books? I'm not sure how that works, because I don't use Goodreads beyond like looking up reviews. Like, I don't track my stuff on there or put like detailed reviews and stuff. But I find this interesting because from what I had understood, if I remember correctly from his video, I think that the spell requires like falling in love, or requires love to do the spell, and then with the author saying that it's not romance, I'm curious to see how that would play out. But the whole premise of this sounds really interesting to me. I'm even more intrigued after hearing the author say that it's not a romance, like if it's a needed thing for what the character is trying to do, and then it's not like labeled like that. I'm curious to see like how that's going to play out. And at the bottom of the description here, it does say that The Poet Empress is an epic fantasy that explores darker themes, subjects, and scenes that may not be suitable for all readers. So it looks like the publishers are labeling it as an epic fantasy rather than a romantasy. So yeah, it's something I'm definitely interested in checking out. For some reason, I feel like I'm getting similar vibe genre-wise as A Song to Drown Rivers. That one had an interesting dynamic when it comes to like romance and how that interacts with like the plot line and everything. And I feel like I'm getting hints of like similar feelings with that one. But next up we have A Trait of Blood, and this is book 3 in the Shadow of the Leviathan series by Robert Jackson Bennett. The first book being The Tainted Cup. So I had read the first book of this for Battle of the Booktubers. I think it was one that I read as one of Danny's recommendations, and I actually really enjoyed it, even though like it's pretty heavily a mystery, like a fantasy mystery series, and mysteries typically aren't really my genre. But I've read book 2 also, and also enjoyed that, and so I guess this one for now is like the exception, and who knows, maybe eventually I'll find more fantasy mystery stuff that I like. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this series. I have a lot of like questions about the world still that I'm hoping will get answered in book 3. And I don't even know if I would say that it's like specific questions so much as I just need to know more, I guess. So yeah, I'm hoping I'll get that in book 3. But it is like a Sherlock Watson dynamic and everything. And they do like body modification and like for their magic and stuff. It's so fascinating, but like you just the world building and stuff is so pieced out, I guess, like only given as you need it for the thing. So then all the background stuff, you're like, what is that? So I'm definitely excited for this one. Now for our final book today, we have Mark of the Warrior by Shannon Lee Fonda Lee. This is book 2 of the Breathmark series, with the first one being Breath of the Dragon. I don't know if y'all saw the video, my wrap up, where I talked about reading the first book, but I had a lot of fun with it. It is a YA fantasy that is heavily martial arts focused, and I just thought the author did a fantastic job at really kind of giving the energy that comes with like martial arts tournaments and stuff. Like it was just very high energy, like fun time, but like and it was really well written and everything. So I am really excited for the second book. But from what I've seen on here, it looks like this is actually supposed to be a duology. So this second book that's coming out is going to be the end of the series. And I have not read a ton of duologies, but I've really enjoyed them. So yeah, those are the books that I am really anticipating for 2026. But yeah, so let me know what upcoming releases that you guys are anticipating. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye!